We've talked about why the coronavirus is killing more black people disproportionately compared to other people. More likely to have what are called comorbidities, underlying conditions, such as obesity, hypertension because of diet, living in areas that are more densely populated, having a job that requires you to leave your house, couldn't stay at home, more likely to have a job in healthcare and therefore coming into contact with people who are infected, more likely to have a job in public services like transportation, same thing. You think Trevor Noah, living in Malibu in his $24.5 million house, has a higher probability of getting coronavirus than somebody living in the hood? Are you kidding me? It's class, socioeconomic class, not race. But notice he can say this without any kind of problem because nobody's going to push back. If Beto O'Rourke says that America is suffering from foundational racism, nobody does any research and says, what the hell do you mean by this? Can you tell us what you're talking about? Nobody does that. Institutional racism, foundational racism, structural racism, systemic racism, it doesn't matter. No one's going to question you. Look at this. There was a alleged Noose. A black man was found hanging from a tree. Uh-oh. Turns out he died of suicide. Video evidence leading up to his death. FBI was probing it. Now NASCAR, Noose found in Bubba Watson NASCAR garage. Turns out it was there since last year. No evidence whatsoever. It was designed to be a symbol of a noose. Sigh. Do you remember when Obama said that racism is in America's DNA? He said that in June 2015.
The legacy of slavery, Jim Crow, discrimination in almost every institution of our lives, that casts a long shadow. And that's still part of our DNA. That's passed on.
Cast a long shadow. Part of our DNA that's passed. What does that mean? Look at the polls in the 50s. White Americans were asked, would you vote for a black president? Hell no. Fast forward 2008, Obama gets a higher percentage of the white vote than John Kerry did. Is this thing on? But racism is in our DNA. It's never been passed on. See, that's the victocrat Obama. That's the politician Obama. The Obama that knows in order to get that 95% near monolithic black vote, you got to keep black people stirred up and believing that racism remains a major problem in America. Now, the sincere Obama, the honest Obama, is the Obama that gives a commencement speech next year at Howard University and says this.
But I wanted to start class of 2016 by opening your eyes to the moment that you are in. If you had to choose one moment in history in which you could be born and you didn't know ahead of time who you were going to be, what nationality, what gender, what race, whether you'd be rich or poor, gay or straight, what faith you'd be born into, you wouldn't choose 100 years ago. You wouldn't choose the 50s or the 60s.
The 50s or the 60s. Because he's speaking to Howard, he's got to slang it up a little bit.
Or the 70s.
When?
You choose right now. If you had to choose a time to be, in the words of Lorraine Hansberry, young, gifted, and black in America, you would choose right now.
See, that's the kind of stuff Obama tells his own kids. You think he told Sasha and Malia that they're going to be oppressed by the white man? That the legacy of Jim Crow carries a long shadow that's going to negatively affect your life? Hell no. But that's what he tells voters. But he goes and gives a commencement speech. Is there any time in history that you could be alive, didn't know what your race was, Where would that be? It would be in America right here today. Hello? That's not racism is in America's DNA, is it?
The legacy of slavery, Jim Crow, discrimination in almost every institution of our lives, that casts a long shadow. And that's still part of our DNA.
But I wanted to start class of 2016 by opening your eyes to the moment that you are in. If you had to choose one moment in history in which you could be born, and you didn't know ahead of time who you were going to be, what nationality, what gender, what race, whether you'd be rich or poor, gay or straight, what faith you'd be born into, you wouldn't choose 100 years ago. You wouldn't choose the 50s or the 60s or the 70s. You'd choose right now.
Of course you would. And Obama believes that because he's proven it. Comes out of nowhere. Can't even pronounce his name for crying out loud. Gives a speech in Boston. I was there to introduce John Kerry, 2004. 4 years later, he's president of the United States. And when he decided to run, according to an article I read again in either Time or Newsweek, I can't remember which one, he had all of his advisors. Valerie Jarrett, his wife, of course. David Axelrod, David Plouffe. All these people that have been his advisors. And they went over the pluses and the minuses of him running for office as president. And the article said race never came up. Now, if racism is in America's DNA, it casts a long shadow. How is it you got all your advisors going over the pros and cons of running and race never came up unless you don't feel it is any longer a significant factor, which is exactly what he told Steve Croft in 60 Minutes. Senator, if you don't win, will it be because of race? And Senator Obama said no. If I don't win, it will be because I have failed to articulate a vision that the American people can embrace. That's what he really thinks. But the politician requires him to tell black people that they're victims, tell black people that they're oppressed, to tell black people that racism remains a major problem in America when he's just now demonstrated it does not. And the problem is it's hurting people. Causing young black men to be more confrontational when stopped by the police. After all, if you assume that race and racism remain in America's DNA, President Barack Obama embraced the Black Lives Matter movement, brought in No Justice, No Peace, Al Sharpton in the White House over 70 some odd times. You are teaching young black men to be confrontational when they are stopped by the police, as opposed to cooperating, being polite, being respectful, and getting a badge and a name so that you can settle up any problems later on. You are making things worse. Why study hard? If, after all, I study hard and I do well in school, the white man is going to hold me back because, after all, racism is in America's DNA. You are making things worse while living your own life very differently. In your $20 million mansion in Martha's Vineyard, I'm Larry Elder.
Larry Elder, all true, all devastating.